In today's video, guys, I just wanted to pop on and talk about setting a foundation in your business finances and taxes. I want to talk about why it's important to set a foundation in your coaching and consulting, business finances and taxes, and what it will cost you if you don't. What it will cost you if you don't. But before I get into it, if you guys are new to me, I just want to say hey, hi, and welcome. My name is Deja Merritt. I am an accountant and debt relief strategist, and I help multi-six-figure coaches and consultants scale to millions while paying close to $0 in federal taxes. So let's talk about it, guys. Setting the foundation in your coaching and consulting, business, finances, and taxes. So when I talk about setting a foundation, I think of it similarly to building a house, right? Everyone has either lived in a house, visited a house, or seen a home before, right? So let's talk about some typical steps that a builder would take during the construction of a new home. So I don't know if you've ever seen a home while it's being built. Maybe you've seen it on TV, on those HGTV channels, on Flip or Flop, or one of those stations, or maybe you've seen it in person, right? But the first thing they do is they always prepare the construction site and they pour the foundation. So before a builder can put a shovel in the ground, their city or government officials must approve the design and provide permits for everything from the zoning and grading to the septic systems to the home construction, electrical work, plumbing, you name it, right? Without those permits, you'll be in big trouble. Because if you start working and the city stops you, or the city pulls up on you and they see you working and you don't have those permits, they're going to shut it down immediately. Now your workers are laid off for weeks, if not months, waiting for those permits to be approved. The project is pushed back. So that means that if you're moving into this home, you're dishing out tons of cash for a place to stay until it gets built. Or if it's an investment property, your money is tied up. And it prolongs the payback time for your investors, right? Which is not a good look. So I want to compare that to your coaching and consulting, business, finances, and taxes, because the goal is to go from informal to formal, right? You want to make sure that you have the right permits and paperwork to be running a formal business. You want to make sure you have your employer identification number. You want to make sure that you have that protection against lawsuits. And when I say protection against lawsuits, I'm referring to your articles of organization or your articles of incorporation. Or in other words, like your LLC, your C Corp, your S Corp, right? Because if somebody was to, Lord forbid, sue you, you want to make sure that you have the proper documentation in place to protect your personal assets. And that's why people go out and get their business registered, right? You want to have those business bank accounts so that you don't commingle your funds, because the moment you do, you cancel out that legal protection. So if they see you commingling your funds, you're using your personal card for business expenses and vice versa. Now, if someone sues you, they can't just go after the business assets, which the business may not have any assets currently, right? But now they have access to your personal assets, like your personal home, your personal car, what's in your personal bank accounts. So you definitely don't want to do that. And then you want to make sure that you have proper bookkeeping in place. You want to make sure that you can substantiate the expenses that you're telling the IRS that you had throughout the year. Why? Because if you can't, if you're audited by the IRS and you can't prove those expenses, they are going to make you pay that money back. If you got back a refund, you have to pay it back. If it reduced your tax liability, then they're going to put that liability back on you, right? In my company, we're familiar with the client that is a technology consultant, right? And he had extremely fast growth in his business. When I talked to him, he told me that the first year they grossed about $45,000. Then he learned how to leverage social media to increase his conversions. And the second year, he grossed over $800K. And in the third year, he crossed over $3 million. So they grew really, really fast. His company grew really, really fast. And he received a personal visit from the IRS. The IRS personally came knocking at his door because he hadn't filed his taxes on that income in 3+ years. I think he told me he hadn't filed taxes in like the last 5 years, right? So he's online posting his receipts, right? Because he's an online consultant. This is how he grows his business. This is how he, get leads and prospects into his business. So he's posting his receipts. He's sharing his testimonies. He's talking about how quickly he grew. So it's no surprise that the IRS came running like, hey, we heard you call us. We heard you say something about millions, but we hadn't gotten a tax return on our end. We haven't seen you file taxes. We haven't seen you pay any taxes. What's up, right? So what happened was they generated a bill for him, and it was well over $2.6 million. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine getting a bill from the IRS for $2.6 million and you've never even filed business taxes for your business? To make a long story short, he had to file those taxes, those 3 to 5 years worth of taxes that he was behind. And because he didn't have solid bookkeeping in place for all of those years, that bill remained well over $2 million because he couldn't substantiate those expenses. It's one thing if he was proactive and he had actually filed his taxes and maybe he didn't have all of the receipts for his expenses, right? But he had an estimate of what he paid for it. But if you're under an audit, they want to see every single receipt to substantiate these expenses that you're claiming. So if he couldn't substantiate them, he owed the money, right? So you want to avoid that scenario altogether in your coaching and consulting business. You want to learn what your tax responsibilities are as a coach or consultant. You want to start educating yourself on the proper way to manage your taxes and bookkeeping. That way you stay compliant with the IRS and you avoid the huge tax liability by being proactive instead of reactive. So let's get back to the house example, guys. So once those permits are acquired, the physical construction can begin, right? The construction crew has to level the site. They put up wooden forms for the temporary foundation and the footings are installed. Next, you move on to complete the rough framing, right? So the floor systems, walls, roof systems, they all have to be put in. Collectively, they're known as the shell or skeleton of the house. So the sheathing is then covered with a protective barrier known as a house wrap, and that house wrap prevents liquid water from infiltrating the structure while allowing water vapor to escape. So in other words, this reduces the likelihood of mold and wood rot. No one wants mold in their house, right? No one wants their home rotting because it's very costly to have it professionally removed. So in your coaching and consulting business, I want you to start creating your shell and skeleton for your business. I want you to start thinking about forecasting and having an extra exit strategy in place. So nobody wants to think about the end, right? I talk to so many coaches and consultants and I'm like, well, what's your exit strategy? Like, how long do you plan on working this business and running this business and actually working in the business versus being the CEO? And you know what a lot of people tell me? They'll say, well, this is my passion. This is what I love to do. So I wouldn't mind doing this forever. And that's okay. I mean, you could do it forever, but you still need an exit strategy in your business, similar to a wheel, right? All of us have to go someday. It's inevitable and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but we all have to go someday. So you don't want to be in a position where you didn't create a will, you didn't get life insurance, you didn't create a trust for your family, and now you pass away and now your business, nobody is taking over your business because you don't have a will to say who should take over your business so that you're still generating that money for your family, or you don't have life insurance in place, so now who's going to take care of your children? You know, just think about it. The average household is already living from paycheck to paycheck. It's already a struggle just to keep up with our own bills. So imagine adding a few mouths to feed and a few bodies to clothe and all of the extra stuff that kids need, right? You don't want to have your family have to stress about how they're going to bury you. If they have to create a GoFundMe account just to have the funds available. Same thing for your business. You want to create an exit strategy. You want to sit down and actually think about what do I see for this business? Do I really want to be doing coaching and consulting for the rest of my life? Do I really want to be doing coaching and consulting for the next 5 years? And here's why it's important to have an exit strategy, because if you were to go to an investor to get capital funding, they want to know what your exit strategy is for your business. They want to know how long you plan on doing this and what your process looks like, right? You want to know, because even in my business, when I sat down and thought about it, when I heard this concept, like creating an exit strategy, I'm like, I never even thought about it. I never even thought to say, hey, I want to be doing taxes and accounting for the next 5 years, and then I want to venture off into something else, right? But when you put that timeline in place, it helps you to reach your goals sooner, and then it gives you a clear expectations of what your goals are for the business, and then even outlining what you want to happen if something was to happen to you. What happens to your business? Like, do you want your family to sell the business and just have that money and live off of that money? Do you want your family to keep your legacy going and to continue to bring in consistent revenue each month, each year? Especially if you are a profitable coaching and consulting business, you want to have that exit strategy in place so that you know what happens next, right? Forecasting will allow you to plan for the future and make key business decisions. So having an accountant on your team to keep track of your bookkeeping ensures that you are aware of certain trends in your business that will affect the budget so that you can plan accordingly. So for instance, if my numbers show peak months in my business, or even if they show famine months in my business, meaning months that are a little slower, I want to be able to plan for that, right? But I need the data to see those trends, because one year could just be a sucky year, right? Last year we had a pandemic, so you may not be able to base certain trends off of your business based off of that year. But if you can go to the year before and the year before that, now you have better data to make more informed business decisions. So if I know that first quarter is the busiest time for me, during third quarter, I'm going to start hiring so that I have the team in place to handle that capacity, right? I'm not just going to wait till I get to my busy season and say, oh, I'm going to figure it out from here. I'm going to want to plan ahead of time so that I can handle the influx when it comes in. If I know that fourth quarter is a slow season for me, maybe I want to pull back on some of my expenditures. Maybe if I have a team and my team is working 40 hours per week, maybe I want to think about cutting their hours down to 20 hours per week. And maybe I want to give them advance notice, because their income is how they take care of their bills and their family. So you want them to have enough time to plan for that shift in their income. If you just cut somebody's income down in half, you know what I'm saying? Like, that person will be thinking, can I get a warning? So you want to have that data available where you can forecast what is going to happen next in your business. It's going to help you make better business decisions. So let's get back to this housing example, right? The third step is you're going to complete rough plumbing, electrical, and HVAC work, right? This is the life of the project. Now you're starting to make a house a home, right? An electrician will install receptacles for outlets, lights, switches, and run wires from the breaker panel to each receptacle. This includes wiring for telephones, for cable TV, for music systems. So now you're starting to add order and life into the home. If you skip this step, you'll be sitting in the dark. You'll be sitting in the dark, and you'll be using a porta potty, if not digging a hole in the backyard to use the bathroom, right? And you don't want that. You don't want that in your beautiful new home. So you want to start thinking about what systems and processes will create order and facilitate growth in your coaching and consulting business with a lean budget. You want to make sure that your expenses are lean so that you are profitable. If you've ever worked at a corporation that has experienced a merger, I'm sure you remember sitting in those boring meetings, learning new systems, learning the company that you're merging with, learning their systems, learning their processes, learning how to manage and maximize the business workflows and processes, right? You're going to have to do some research. You're going to have to try out new softwares. You're going to have to do some market research and see what are other coaches and consultants in your industry. What software are they using, right? You want to get your processes and systems in place. That way you can automate 90% of your work, because that's going to free up your time to create that freedom and time flexibility for yourself and for your family. That's why you became an entrepreneur, right? So that you could have control over your own time. So in order to do that, you want to make sure that your processes and systems is in place. We haven't even talked about the people yet, right? Because before the people come, you have to have the processes and systems in place. You have to document those processes and systems, so now you can teach it to somebody else. So you want to start trying different softwares. You want to start trying different processes and systems. You want to get on some webinars and some Zooms and, connect with different platforms so that you can make this experience more enjoyable for you. The fourth step when you're building a home is you're going to install the insulation. Did I say that right? Insulation. I'm tripping over my words tonight because it's a little late. But you want to install the insulation. Insulation plays a key role in creating a more comfortable, consistent indoor climate while significantly improving a home's energy efficiency. So in other words, if you don't want it to be too hot in your home, or you don't want it to be too cold in your home, you want it to be a comfortable temperature all year round, you want to be sure that you don't skip this step of installing the installation. So in your coaching and consulting business, this is your team. Who do you need in place to manage those processes and systems as your business scales, right? Because in the beginning, you could probably do it on your own. I'm sure that you can. I know many people that have, but as your business grows, as you start working with more clients, as you get more complex projects, right? As you start expanding in your coaching and consulting business, you are going to need people in place that can focus on those administrative tasks, that can focus on the onboarding and offboarding. That way you can focus on those money generating activities. You're going to need people to engage with your community. You're going to need people to keep your calendar booked with quality leads. You're going to need help so that you can relax a little bit more, right? So that you can take a 7-day, a 10-day, a 14-day vacation with your family and not have to worry about, dang, I'm on vacation for 14 days, but I'm not making no money. Because you can't have fun if you're not making any money. I don't know about you, but if you've ever traveled and you've been away and you're not making money in that time, all your mind is thinking about is, hey, I need to get back to work so I can get this money machine back flowing. Your system should not stop just because you go on vacation. Your system should not stop if you, Lord forbid, get ill, right? Because that's why you have the processes in place to automate a lot of those processes, and that's why you have your team in place to manage them. So if anything, your team should be able to carry you while you are away. I have a good friend of mine. She runs an accounting firm as well, and she just had a baby, and she was out on maternity leave for a good 3 months, which is a very healthy maternity leave, but she's still making consistent income in her business. Her income hasn't fluctuated at all because she has the processes and the people in place to manage things while she's out. So you want to get to that same place in your business. You want to be booked and comfortable, right? Not booked and busy, but booked and comfortable. You want to be booked and not overwhelmed. You want to be booked because you decided on a 4-hour work week, just 20 hours per month, but you're still making multiple 6 figures or multiple millions with just a quarter of the work that your colleagues are doing. Just a quarter of the work that your colleagues are doing for a quarter of the pay that you're getting, right? You want to determine who are the key people that you need in place to handle the capacity and to scale to multiple millions with ease. So is that a social media manager? Is that an operation business manager? Is that a community engagement leader? Is that, who is it, right? Write down those job roles, write down those job titles, and then write down specifically what it is that you would have that person to do, because you will need it very soon, right? You will be able to just copy and paste that description and go ahead and put it on a job title and put that out there, put it out in the universe and receive it. And last but not least, when you're building a home, you want to, well, I guess it's not last, but the final stage to actually setting a foundation before you get to all the glitz and the glamour, right, is completing a drywall and interior fixtures. You want to start on the exterior finishes. So in this stage, you are finishing the interior trim. You may be installing exterior walkways and driveways. You may be picking out your desired flooring. You may be picking out those gorgeous countertops that you absolutely love and the cabinets, installing mirrors, shower doors, figuring out what you want your landscaping to look like, all of the bells and whistles, right? So in your coaching and consulting business, this is your rinse and repeat cycle. You are going to take what's working and you're going to double down on it. You're going to improve the framework that's already working for you, that's already profitable for you, that's already getting your clients results, right? You want to, in this stage, since you're rinsing and repeating, since you already have a process that works, now you're finding ways that you can get even greater results for your clients in an even shorter time period, right? So we talked about setting that foundation, right? We talked about, number one, you want to make sure that you know what your tax responsibilities are as a coach or consultant. You know how often you need to pay taxes and how you need to pay them throughout the year. You have a proper bookkeeping system in place, so that you can track the metrics that's going to help you make and save more money, and so that you can prove those expenditures if you're ever audited by the IRS. And then you're going to have that separate bank account so that you aren't commingling your funds. And then you're going to make sure that paperwork is on track, right? You're going to make sure the paperwork is in place so that you don't get shut down and, a moment's notice. Then we talked about, moving on to more complex stuff, right? After you set that foundation, making sure that you, So after you set that foundation, you want to make sure that you start thinking about forecasting and having that exit strategy in place. What do you want for your business in the next 3 to 5 years? When do you see yourself moving on or transitioning? To be completely honest, when I see coaches and consultants in this industry, they either go a couple ways, right? They're either creating their own software or digital products where they can make consistent monthly recurrent income without them actually having to show up, or they're moving on to corporate contracts, right? Do you want to be doing this for the next 10 years? Do you have the capacity to be doing this for the next 10 years? Because in your coaching and consulting business, you may have started off with one-on-ones to figure out what works, but after a while, you're not going to have the capacity to serve clients one-on-one. So now you have to move to group coaching. And then what happens after that? It takes a lot of energy to be able to show up for your clients and give them a ton of value, right? So can you see yourself doing this for a long 10-year stretch? Or do you plan on doing this for 2 years and then figuring out what softwares that you can create to create that residual income or develop, right, on your own? We're talking about from scratch, right? What is a need in the market that your current clients need and want and will pay for that can create residual income for you so that you aren't forced to show up, right? Then you want to start thinking about what systems and processes will create order and facilitate growth in your coaching and consulting business. How can you work smarter, not harder? How can you automate and put your business on autopilot so that you can go take a 7-day or 10-day vacation in the Bahamas, so that you can go away for an emergency and not have to worry about losing money, so that you can sleep easy at night, not having to stress about being overworked and overwhelmed because your processes and systems are doing most of the work for you. As your business starts to scale and grow, who are the key players that you need on your team to facilitate that growth, to manage those processes and systems so that you can focus on the money generating activities? And lastly, we're talking about the bells and whistles, guys, right? Now this is the rinse and repeat cycle. How can you improve the current framework that you have so that your clients get even greater results? What questions do y'all have? So in today's video, we talked about setting that foundation. You can no longer use the excuse that you don't know. When we were younger and we were growing up and we were learning about finances, we could say, hey, I was never taught, right? Hey, I did some messed up stuff in my journey because I had to learn on my own, right? But ignorance is not a way out of the huge tax bill that you'll receive from the IRS if you don't do your own due diligence and stay compliant, right? You have to educate yourself or put people on your team that will keep you in the know, that will keep you in the loop, that will keep you above ground with the IRS so that you stay compliant. So if you are in need of an accountant to help you manage and maximize your taxes and bookkeeping, I invite you to schedule a 15-minute coffee chat so that we can discuss your tax and bookkeeping needs, what those requirements look like for you as a coach or consultant, and then we'll also discuss how well or how we can help you manage and maximize your taxes and bookkeeping. That way you stay compliant with the IRS and profitable throughout the year. So click the link in the description of this video to book that call, and I cannot wait until the next video. I hope you guys have a wonderful night and be blessed.